and sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their own strange tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night by the marge of Lake LaBarge. I cremated Sam McGee. Now Sam McGee was from Tennessee where the cotton blooms and blows. Why he left his home in the south to roam on a pole, God only knows. He was always cold, but the land of gold seemed to hold him like a spell. Though he'd often say in his homely way, he'd sooner live in hell. It was on a Christmas Day. We were mushing our way over the Dawson Trail. Talk of cold through our coat's folded would stab like a driven nail. If our eyes we closed, then the lashes they froze till sometimes we couldn't see. It was no fun, but the only one to whimper was Sam McGee. It was on that night as we lay packed tight in our robes beneath the snow. The dogs were fed and the stars overhead were dancing heel and toe. That he turned to me and, "Cap," says he, "I'll cash in this trip, I guess. But if I do, I'm hoping that you won't refuse my last request." Well, he seemed so low I couldn't say no, and he said with a sort of a moan, "It's this cursed cold, and it's got right hold, till I'm chilled clean through to the bone. But it ain't being dead, it's my awful dread of an icy grave that pains. But I want you to swear that foul affair, you'll cremate my last remains." Now a pal's last need is a thing to heed, and I swore I would not fail. We started on at the streak of dawn, but God, he was ghastly pale. He crouched in his sleigh and he waved all day of his home in Tennessee. And before nightfall, a corpse was all that was left of Sam McGee. Let's see. There wasn't a breath in that land of death, and I hurried, horror-driven, with a corpse half hid that I couldn't get rid because of a promise given. He was lashed to the sleigh, and it seemed to say, "You may tax your brawn and brains, but your promise true, and it's up to you to cremate these last remains." Now a promise made is a debt unpaid, and the trail has its own stirred cold. And in the days to come, though my lips may numb, in my heart how I curse that load. In the long lonely night by the lone firelight, and the huskies round in a ring sang out their woes to the homeless snows. Oh God, how I hated that thing. And every day that quiet clay seemed to heavy and heavier grow. But on I went till the dogs were spent and the grub was getting low. The trail was bad and I felt half mad, but I swore I would not give in. And I'd often sing to that hopeful thing, to that hateful thing, and it hearkened with a grin. Till I came to the marge of Lake LaBarge, and a derelict there lay. It was jammed in the ice, and I saw in a trice it was called the Alice May. Then I looked at it, and I thought a bit. Then I looked at my frozen chum, and here, said I with a sudden cry, is my crematorium. Some planks I tore from the cabin floor, and I lit the boiler fire. Some coal I found that was laying around, and I piled the fuel higher, and the flame just soared, and the furnace roared, such a blaze you seldom see. Then I burrowed a hole in the glowing coal, and I stuffed in Sam McGee. Then I took a hike, for I didn't like to hear him sizzle so. But on I went. No, let me see. The dog was let's see. Then I took a hike, for I didn't like to hear him sizzle so. And the heavens scowled, and the huskies howled, and the winds began to blow. Let me think. The winds began to blow. I was sick with dread. icy cold, but the hot sweat rolled down my cheeks, I don't know why. And the greasy smoke and an inky cloak went racing down the sky. I do not know how long the snow I wrestled with grisly fear, but on I went, no, let me think, I wrestled with grisly fear. Then the door, I was sick with dread, but I bravely said, I'll just take a peek inside. It's time I looked, he must be cooked. Then the door I opened wide. And there sat Sam, looking cool and calm in the heart of the furnace roar. And he wore a smile, you could see a mile, and he said, please close the door. It's fine in here, and I greatly fear you'll let in the cold and storm. Since I left Plumtree down in Tennessee, it's the first time I've been warm. There are brave things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have the secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night by the marge of Lake LaBarge. I cremated Sam McGee.
Wow.
Robert W. Service.
Wow.
Dad?